When it comes to some people, they care more about like the flashiness of their creations than the actual safety of them. I mean, high risk, high reward. It makes sense. And you know, that's funny I say that, Bailey. Why? Well, because that's exactly what a man named Thomas Andrews thought. And ultimately, it would cost him. So let's go back to the beginning, just like Hilary Duff said. Back to the 1800s. It's 1873, and a man named Thomas Andrews Jr. was born in North Ireland. Apparently, as a kid, he had like a big obsession with boats. He's like, I fucking love boats. And his friends gave him the nickname Admiral. I love boats. He was even known to go and watch the ships being built near his home. When he was 16, Thomas became an apprentice and started working for his uncle, Lord Paris. He owned a very famous company that built ships called Harland and Wolff. So Thomas was just living his dream life. He's like, this is sick. And over the next several years, Thomas made sure to become a star student. He made a point to learn how to do everything when it came to building these ships. He wanted to be the best at it. And all of his hard work paid off because he finally would secure a full-time position at his uncle's company. He rose through the ranks really fast. And Thomas eventually became the managing director of the entire company. I mean, yeah, it probably helped that his uncle owned it. So at this position, he now had to check on every part of the shipbuilding process. And Thomas, he was, I don't want to say a freak, he was just he knew what to look for when it came to safety and details. And he was a bit of a perfectionist. This was his passion. He loved it. So he was great at this. Each time a ship was completed, Thomas, would ride on its first trip. He'd be there, part of the crew. And during the trip, he would take notes about what was working, what didn't work, and things that could be improved. I like that. He was thorough. Sometimes Thomas would even go check out other companies in the countries. He would go to Germany or Canada and see how they were building ships there. And he always came back with detailed reports on how he could make the company better, how they could make the ships better. And this was part of the reason Harland and Wolff was basically the #1 best shipbuilding company in the world at this time. I mean, they were always aiming for perfection. On September 17th, 1908, Harland and Wolff signed a contract with a British company called White Star Line. Does this sound familiar? And this was a huge deal because they weren't just making any ships, they were building these huge passenger ships. Sorry, I don't know how I'm talking like that. Yeah, big ships, large ships, huge ships. And look, this was a big moneymaker for them, and it would bring tons of positive attention to Harland and Wolff. The company was set to build 3 passenger ships, the Olympic, the Britannic, and a little cutie called the Titanic. Yeah, here we are, huh? So, these ships were not going to be your regular everyday ships. Nay. These were going to be extravagant. They were called Olympics class because of how large and fancy they were intended to be. I mean, they would be able to serve thousands of guests and have just as many bedrooms. It would be a luxury experience. It wasn't going to be a nasty ship experience. Now, the focus was not on the speed of the ship, but on the glamour and the comfort it provided. The Olympic was the first ship in this series to be built, and a man named Alexander Carlisle, who worked for Harland and Wolff, designed the ships. Each ship would take about 2 years to build, but for some reason, in June of 1910, Alexander resigned before the first ship was finished, completely out of the blue. No one knows why. There's some conspiracies there that maybe he knew something before they were going to know something. Do you know what I'm saying? Neither do I, but I think he knew something. Or maybe he planned something. I don't think he would do that, but I think he saw something that was going to happen. I don't know. It's kind of giving me a Boeing experience here, huh? Boeing? Yeah, maybe. Anyway, Alexander out of the picture. So the company turned to their bright shining star to finish designing the ships. Thomas. Thomas has been waiting for his whole life for this moment, And he steps into his new role overseeing the building of the Britannic, the Olympic, and the Titanic. The next year, the Olympic is ready for action. Now, its first voyage begins that summer, and Thomas is on the ship, ready to test it out, just like he has done his whole career, And everything, it went very smoothly, which is great. That's great. And that means it's a great sign for the other two ships. Everyone is hyped. Like, this is going to be great. So the Olympic was getting rave reviews, and great. People are loving it. Now the company is working on the Titanic. And for Thomas, the Titanic was like his baby. He's really putting all his love into this wonderful ship. And by 1912, it was completed. Now, it had taken around 3 years to build the ship, and it had cost like $7.5 million, which would be like $160 million today. Oh, yeah. And it was the largest ship ever built at the time. So when word gets out about this whole Titanic situation, everyone was desperate to get a ticket, They want to experience this luxury, huge ship situation. So the average cost of a first class ticket was $400 back then, or in like today's money, $5,000. But some people paid tens of thousands of dollars for more exclusive first class tickets, like Rose. It's launch day. Titanic is ready to hit the water, and it's going to be a big spectacle. Everyone's going to show up, celebrate. Woo! This is like very exciting. The uncle, Lord Paris, he's dressed all fancy. He doesn't really give a big speech. He doesn't really give a shit. Instead, he makes a big show of like pulling the lever that starts letting the Titanic slide into the water. And then it's off to be loaded and prepped for its first voyage. Now, the night before the Titanic set sail to America, Thomas wrote a letter saying, quote, "The Titanic is now about complete and will, I think, do the old firm credit tomorrow when we sail." Could add a comma in there somewhere. Would make, we're struggling with that one. Thomas was confident in the Titanic, just like he was with every other ship he had worked on. The company. Right? They've all been great successes. Why wouldn't this one? And on April 10th, 1912, the Titanic set out on its maiden voyage. It was leaving from England and making its way to New York. Now, the journey was supposed to take around 5 to 7 days. Thomas is on board, per usual, and he's taking all of his little notes. Everything's going according to plan. He becomes friendly with the crew, making sure everything's good. But then, April 14th, 1912, the unimaginable happened. Despite years of inspections and tests, the Titanic collides with an iceberg. We all saw the 3-hour movie, right? The immediate impact isn't hard enough for people to really notice at first, and they don't really think it's a big deal. This is a Titanic. It's huge. It's unsinkable. Yeah. Even after they hit the iceberg, Thomas has dinner and goes back to his room. And he's looking over notes and maps and things, not really thinking twice about it. And then someone comes into his room and tells him that he is needed immediately. Now, he has no idea, what's going on. So Thomas, he goes to the captain and checks in with him to see what's going on. And after the captain gives him a rundown about hey, we just hit an iceberg and kind of shit's going south. Thomas is okay, can I see the damage? So he's shown some of the rooms that are starting to fill with water at this point. And this is when it really started to hit him. Oh, fuck. He's oh shit. So Thomas tells the captain that he knows the Titanic will sink. He predicts they only have about 2 hours until the entire ship is sunk. So the alarms are going off and people start evacuating. Right away, the evacuation process is a disaster. There aren't enough lifeboats for everyone. Not even close. The designs had only put a few more lifeboats than legally required. I mean, originally they wanted less lifeboats because they wanted people to like walk around and see the water, and they didn't want these ugly lifeboats taking up all the space. You know, no one's gonna use them. This is the Titanic. Experts believe that because Thomas told the captain to start evacuating the ship, more lives were saved. But I'm sure you're aware, you know, tragically, thousands of lives were still lost. The exact number is still unknown, but it's estimated around 1,500 people died. Sadly, Thomas Andrews was one of those people. So once he ordered the alarm to sound, he only like helped people evacuate. He never tried to leave the ship. I know. It's like a real stand-up guy right there, huh? Yeah. I saw people were asking like, well, why didn't he try to leave the ship? Why wouldn't he try to? It's like, I don't know. Because people were different back then. They're not like selfish assholes pushing everyone out of the way. He actually tried to help save people. Like, that's real nice. Reportedly, the last time Thomas was seen was in the first class smoking room, and he wasn't wearing a life vest. Some people speculated that he was looking at a painting called Plymouth Harbor. This was a painting depicting where the Titanic was supposed to have docked in America. Tragic. He's just looking at art. Damn, that's sad. I don't know. Look, you gotta try and you gotta innovate. I mean, yeah, like Titanic, tragic, right? All those people died. But, you know, didn't we learn something from the Titanic? Like better, I'm sure like they bettered ships because of it.